right, good evening, folks. Welcome to RenmanMusicandBusiness.com. My name is Steve Rennie. I am the Renman, and this is Renman U, Lesson 7, Making Great Music. Today, we're going to be talking about two of the building blocks of the music business, great songs and great performances of those songs. We're going to talk about what it is that makes a great song tonight. We're going to talk about what kind of songs you should be writing, where the inspiration for those great songs comes from, what it takes to write them by yourself or perhaps working with other songwriters as well. Having great songs is just the start of it. You'll need to turn those songs into great recordings, and to do that, you'll likely need some help, and that typically means a great record producer to help you get those great performances in those great records. We're going to talk tonight about the role of the producer and what it is they do. I think lots of folks wonder. We're going to talk about how to find one and how much it can cost you. We're going to talk about the key members of that recording process, the recording team. We'll talk about that process of recording, how you get those recordings and those great performances. And to help us understand it all, we're going to be joined later this evening by Grammy Award-winning producer, my good buddy, Mr. Brendan O'Brien. And of course, we'll be taking some questions along the way. For those of you folks that might be watching Renman U for the first time, let me tell you what we're doing here. God knows there are lots of people and schools out there who want to teach you the music business. But here's what I know. You can't learn the music business by reading a book. You learn it by doing. You learn it from people that have done it and succeeded in the music business. Renman U is my insider's guide to today's music business. I'm going to share with all of you folks out there today the lessons I've learned over 36 years of doing as a concert promoter, as a record executive, as an internet entrepreneur, and an artist manager. I want to teach you everything I know about the music business and everything you'll need to know to succeed in today's music business. The real music business, not some fairy tale textbook version of the music business. So if you're looking to do something great in this music business, but you need some help, you're in the right place today. I'll also say this, our Renman U classroom, while we have some folks here today, is open to anybody on the planet that wants to learn, and the tuition here at Renman U is absolutely free. Here's what I want for you, though, from you guys in exchange. I want you guys to be a part of it. All you folks out there online as well, I want you to be a part of it. I want to know that you got a burning desire to do something great in this music business. I want to know that you're willing to do the work and put in the time it takes to learn about this business. And it's been my experience over many years that the best way to learn anything is to ask questions. And so if you haven't been to our website or our web show before, I'm going to give you a little hint of our saying we got around here. It's called, you don't ask, you don't get, and you don't learn anything. So let me tell you how you can ask some questions if you've got something on your mind. If you're watching on the web, for all you advanced planners out there, you can post your questions ahead of time on our event page. You'll see it right there on your screen. You can post your questions in our chat room during the broadcast. Let me introduce you to my friend, the lovely Michelle Wrightson. How are you today, Michelle?
I am great. Very happy to be here.
Good. Everybody was running late, but in the great rock tradition, they all showed up right in a nick of time. That's what we love that. If you're feeling dangerous, folks, tonight, you can call us on our Renman MB hotline. It's 310-469-9067. It's the easiest way to move right into the front row. So take me up on that offer here tonight, folks. In addition to all you folks out there watching online today, we have some folks who've joined us here tonight in the studio, actually 2 nights in a row. I'll talk about that later. Anyway, I want to introduce them to you all, and we're going to start with this gentleman on my right in front of you. Take it away. You are?
My name is Aaron Rudin.
Okay. And what are you looking to do in the music business, Aaron?
I'm a drummer, looking to play some shows, and I do sessions and touring.
All right. You in a band, or you mostly just session stuff?
I play in a lot of different bands, trying to start up my own thing right now.
Okay. You have a specific style of music you like yourself?
Yeah, I do mostly kind of rock influenced things.
All right. Good. All right. To your right, my left, this gentleman is?
Hi, I'm Nathan Osmond.
Okay. Where are you from, Nathan?
I'm from Seattle, Washington.
Living here in LA now, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, great.
I'm a composer and a producer.
Okay.
I'm making some film composing and stuff like that.
All right, great. Good stuff. All right, to your right is a friend of ours. I feel like I've known her forever now, although she's quite young. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, I'm Liz Duenas.
Duenas? Okay.
Duenas,
okay. And you are from?
From Montebello, from Los Angeles.
Montebello, love it. All right. And what are you dreaming of doing, or what are you doing in this music business?
I am a songwriter.
I like it. Very definitive.
Yes.
Okay.
Rock.
Okay.
Probably my specialty.
Okay. Are you in a band, or you just like writing rock?
Band, level 7. But,
Okay. All right,
yeah,
great.
I'm looking to be a working songwriter.
All right, you out gigging and stuff around town? All right, excellent stuff. Okay, so this is good. This will be very appropriate. We got somebody that wants to be a composer, producer, got drummer, and a musician and songwriters. That's perfect today. Before we get started, folks, I wanted to tell you a little something about this website I started. About 18, 20 months ago, I started a website. It's called Renman Music and Business with a very, very simple idea. I wanted to help aspiring artists and music professionals navigate their way around today's music business, that real music business. I've been very fortunate in my life and in my career to have made all my kind of rock and roll dreams come true. And I wanted to help others try to make their own music business dreams come true. So I invited some of the smartest, most talented, most successful people in the business to help me do that. And today, if I might say so myself, I think our Renman MB website is the single greatest source of music business knowledge on the planet for people that are interested in the music business, whether you're an artist or whether you're a music professional. I encourage all of you folks that are watching out there today, if you just got us and just discovered us, and I was just on Twitter and a couple people just found us today. I encourage you folks to dig down deep into that site and start learning. There's all kinds of great advice from really truly the smartest, most talented people in the music business. But before you do that, you'll actually need to join our community. It's pretty easy to do. You just go to our webpage. Cody will show it to you. There it is. You go to the webpage and fill out that form, your email name, screen name, first name, and all that. That little grid you see to the right is what I call our little dreamers grid. It tells us what you're interested in, whether it's being a producer, manager, artist, concert promoter, whatever it might be. And that information is important for us because as we keep moving along with our site, we're going to try to design some promotions and stuff to engage you folks in your area of interest and give you a chance to learn for real. Okay, so I hope you'll take me up on it. There's always something going on here at Renman MB as these folks are all smiling. Not all of it's good, but we got through it all. The best way to keep in touch with us is on our social media channel. So if Cody will be kind enough to put them up on the screen. On Twitter at Renman MB, YouTube Renman MB, Instagram if you love behind the scenes photos and dog shots. We've got plenty of those. And on Facebook at Renman MB. I hope you'll keep in touch. We read all those comments. We appreciate the input, and I encourage you to take us up on that offer as well. Now that we've taken care of all the business, all the plumbing stuff, let's get started on our lesson today. As I mentioned at the top, this music business starts with great songs, right? Without great songs, there is no music business at all, right? And there's a reason they call it the music business, though, right? And part of it's because it's obviously music is part of the business, but it's also made up of business. And musicians and business people are what make up the business. I'm one of those business types. I don't play an instrument. I'm not a musician. So I can't help you write a song myself. But I know a lot of folks who can. And so some of those smart people that I referenced at the top that we've been talking to here at Renman are musicians and songwriters. So today I'm going to enlist their help to tell the story of how to make great music, okay? Today's lesson, we've gone back through over 500 clips and 100 interviews through our archives, and we'll be tapping into those creative minds, some very talented folks that I'll introduce along the way, and then they'll share their thoughts with us by way of video. Okay, let's talk about songwriting here. What makes a great song is the first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to ask each of you folks to tell me what you think first. We'll start with Aaron.
I'd say the emotion, the feeling behind the song, if the song is conveying that message.
Okay, emotion, feeling, great stuff. Nathan?
I guess just the quality of the melody and how it flows from section to section.
Okay, all right. Liz, you're a songwriter, you're a singer. Tell us, what is it makes a great song?
I'd say the hook.
The hook, okay.
Yeah, like something hooky that would.
Okay, that's good stuff. You got emotion, you got it from a composer's, you got the hook. Those are all part of it. I think what's interesting about when you're talking about great song, it's different for everybody, right? What works for one person might not work for somebody else. I might love a song and Michelle hates it. That would unlikely that would happen. It's really kind of a personal thing. I'm interested to get some thoughts from the people on the chat room too, Michelle. So
yeah,
if you
I have some comments actually.
You have some comments already? Beautiful.
We have Clockwork Hero says great melody.
Great melody.
Tony Romano says relatability, which is true. That's one of my things. If somebody could listen to a song and say, "Hey, I went through that."
All right, you're a songwriter. What's a great song in your mind? Tell us what's a great song.
Besides having a catchy melody where it'll be stuck in their head. I think a song that if somebody listens to it and can really relate and think that they went through that, that makes a great song to me.
Yeah, it talks about their lives, people's lives here. Okay, what's your favorite song right now? Or your favorite song, period. First favorite song that comes to mind, great song comes to mind.
I guess Stairway to Heaven.
Stairway to Heaven. Okay, Nathan?
Dream On.
Dream On. Okay, Liz, I'm interested to hear what your favorite song is, or one of your great songs.
It's a song by Incubus.
Which one?
The one that says, "Don't let the world get you down. Not everybody here is
The Warmth?
that fucked up and cold."
The Warmth. Yeah, you can say fucked up. Not everybody's that fucked up and cold. Yeah, I remember. I don't remember many of the lyrics my kids kid me about. It's funny, when you talk about great songs, everybody's got one. It touches different parts of our soul, right? So, for me, it's always been all of those things, something that's got emotion, something that's memorable, something that I can relate to, a hook that I can sing. And more often than not, as I get older, I think about songs that really kind of were snapshots or photographs of a great moment in my life. There always seemed to be a song going. And some of them were great moments and some of them weren't great moments. But for me, they're snapshots of points in my life here. How about our folks online? Yeah, we already talked about it. Sorry about that. I'm losing my place here. Okay, so now we've got our idea of what we think great songs are, and we all have a slightly different take, but we're not far apart. If you buy that the best way to learn anything is to talk to the doers, I thought it'd be helpful to see what goes on in the mind of a successful songwriter and see what they reckon makes up a great song, because they've written a few of them themselves. I told you I was going to introduce you to some of my friends here today. A while back, I had an opportunity to speak with a songwriter by the name of Tom Kelly on our web show called Renman Live. Tom has had an extraordinary career as a songwriter. He's an old friend of mine. He's a golfing buddy. But he's in the Songwriter Hall of Fame, and he's written some career-making songs. He's had a bunch of #1 hits, including Like a Virgin that he wrote for Madonna, So Emotional for the late Whitney Houston. One of my favorite songs, True Colors by Cyndi Lauper. It makes you want to cry, that song. There was another song back in the 80s or 70s, might even been the 70s, Hold the Line by Toto. Horrible band, but a great song. I shouldn't say that. They were a really good band with a big fat singer. You can check out the Wikipedia page, which is listed on our event page for Tom, to see all the hits he's had. Too many for me to remember here. But anyway, I asked Tom what he reckoned were the elements of a great song from the eyes of a great songwriter himself. And I'll play you that clip, and you'll see what he has to say. If I had to ask you, what are the key elements in hit songs, whether they were written in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or the 2000s, what would you tell me?
Well, I'm a big fan of melody, and I don't think I've ever written a song that you wouldn't say was melodic. I mean, now things changed a lot. A lot of songs became late. One reason I slowed down is because I didn't like what was happening. But they're just tracks. They're tracks with incredibly infectious dance beats, and maybe more monotonous, repetitive melodies and lyrics. And it was all about dance, which is that's cool. I understand that, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. So, to me, every song had to have a good melody, and every song had to have kind of a clever surprise in it. You know, there has to be something that kind of turns your head. If it just moves along and it's predictable and you've heard it before, then I don't think it's a hit song, and I don't think it'll go far. But there, you know, I would purposely I'd throw a curveball in there somewhere. Just do something to just some element of surprise, and hopefully something clever.
Let me ask you this about, you know, all right, some great advice there. Clever surprise and melody. And if you've listened, if you go and you get a chance to go to our webpage and check out some other information on Tom and read up on all those song titles, I Touch Myself, Hit Me With Your Best Shot. His partner had a penchant for like trying to be clever even in the titles. But great songwriter, great guy, a lot to learn there. I hope you'll check out the whole interview. Any questions so far? Any questions from the chat room? Okay, then we'll keep moving. I want to talk about this idea that I call finding your true north, right? And what it is it's in life, you got to try to figure out who you really are. And when you're younger, you go through all kinds of thoughts and dreams and trying to figure out where you fit in the world. As you get a little bit older, you hopefully figure it out. But it's this idea called true north. And I want to talk about it in the context of songwriting. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've had, you know, young people call me up, or songwriters or people in bands ask me what kind of music I should be writing, right? And I'm a manager, I'm not a musician, but it always gets me nervous because it says to me very clearly and very quickly that they're not quite sure who they are, okay? And that is a problem, okay? Because if you're trying to figure out what to write, I don't think you can ever succeed, because I believe that great songs are not an act of calculation. They are moments of inspiration that are inspired and generated from the simple act of living our lives. Those things that we talked about, touching and feelings and things that you can relate to. That's what powerful songs are. And I think when you try to paint by numbers with them, and I'm not a songwriter or musician, I just don't think it works. I think your music needs to reflect who you really are, because it will be authentic, it'll be honest, it'll be something people can relate to. So I want to, for all the folks out there that are trying to get their arms around what is this true north thing, I want to play a clip that talks about it, and I hope gives you a little bit of perspective, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about your true north. Take it away, Cody. Artists over the years, and it has to do with this notion of finding your compass and finding your true north. And I think what it really means is understanding who you are, understanding where it is you want to go at the biggest picture level. And the reason you need to do that is because once you get into the music business, you will have all kinds of competing agendas and forces pulling on you in different directions. You know, you write a song and you've taken a path and it's not quite going well. And somebody wants to go, well, you need to do this and you need to do that, or you need to be a little more like this or a little more like that. And if you haven't got a clear sense of what you're about, if you don't have a clear sense of where you are and where you want to go, you will be pulled off course frequently. True artists, whether you like their music or not, have a clear sense of who they are. And the great ones definitely did. And that's why they're so easily identifiable. I saw Willie Nelson the other night. Willie Nelson started in the country music where it was strings and violins and very polished, and he said, no, that's not who I am. And then he became the real Willie Nelson with the bandana and this and that. He's 80 years old. He's still out there being Willie Nelson at 80 years old and couldn't give a shit about what anybody thinks of it. That's staying true to your compass. And I think it applies not just in the music business, but about in life in general. The people that are never sure who they are, that are just waffling from place to place, you never know how close they are to coming out the other end of the forest. So for me, it's figure out your compass, you know, set it and trust it. Thoughts, folks here in the audience? Do you feel like you're in touch with your true north, Aaron?
Getting there.
Getting there? Is it a struggle for you? I mean, you pulled around by things and you see something working and think, maybe I should doodle that, maybe I'm working a tough side of the street?
I guess the biggest challenge for me would be more if my instincts in writing is very similar to other things out there, trying to differentiate more making yourself more unique, I guess.
Yeah, maybe you take a little bit of Tom Kelly's advice, the clever surprise, because he works in a structure, so the clever surprise, the interesting twist, the lyrical twist, the instrumental twist is what he focuses on. Liz, true north, you think you found your true north?
Yeah, I could say I have.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing my dad had taught me since I was little. You know, be a leader, don't follow
Good.
meaning in music.
Good. My friend Michelle here, and who's been gracious enough to help us out by interning, is, you know, her and I have had, you know, Michelle and I have had some conversations about True North. You're a songwriter, and you and I have talked about this issue of, you know, trying, you know, to be who you are, and yet sometimes the industry and people that, well-meaning, or might have a different idea.
Absolutely.
You just got back from writing in Sweden for what, 3 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
Did that help you find your true north, Michelle?
Yes, absolutely.
Tell me why.
Because especially in LA, and I don't want to, everything that I've been through has been great, and it's made me who I am, but yeah, it's been difficult because everybody's been telling me who I should sound like, or what I should look like, or what kind of music I should sing. And in a way, it's great because by doing that, I figured out that's not what I want to do. But in Sweden, these writers were like, hey, you tell me what you want. Like, what do you feel like you want to see yourself singing on stage? And they catered to what I really wanted as a musician. And I think 2 weeks of people really focusing on what I wanted was the first time that I had this whole new world of like, wow, I can make music that I love. So
excellent. So you'll be playing me something
Yes.
soon, I hope? Okay,
Yes.
great. I think one of the things you need to think about, folks, and Michelle and I had talked about in different contexts, if you go with what you like, right, it likely will have some impact on what the sellability, the marketability of it is. If you love pop music, like Tom Kelly, right? That was his thing. He loved it. He listened to pop music when he was a kid, and you write pop music and it sells, terrific, right? But if you love jazz or you love blues, or maybe it's something a little off the beaten path there, I say go with it. But just to know that in terms of its million-selling appeal, that might not be how you judge your success. And that's part of understanding who your true north is and where your compass is, because it will have an impact in some way in your life. And that's part of the key to the big picture we've talked about, is getting your head around the fact that the decisions you make are yours, and that they'll have impact, and that you just got to be able to live with it. So something to think about, that notion about finding the creative balance between art and commerce, no matter whether you're doing pop, rock, blues, jazz, hip hop, or whatever, is always there. So when all of those things are coming into the mix, remember that video. Everybody's going to be pulling, twisting, things are coming at you. If you understand where your true north is, you'll have an easier time filtering that stuff out and putting one step in front of another, okay? This idea of where songs come from. My friend Brandon Boyd, who I think is just wonderful songwriter, lyricist, vocalist, wrote an album called Sons of the Sea recently with our friend Brendan O'Brien, who will be joining us shortly. And there was a song on the record that I just loved because it spoke to who that guy is as a man. And it's a song called Where All the Songs Come From. And I thought it was a great lead in to this little segment here. Inspiration is what drives those songs. We talked about it, you know. People ask, where do you get the inspiration to write those great songs? I suppose it would be great if you could write a song like computer code, or if it was like adding and subtracting 2 + 2 = 4, 4 divided by 2, you know, all of that. That would be easy. But more often than not, it just doesn't work that way. Nothing in the music business works that way. These songs, in my experience of working with bands and artists, tend to show up when they want to. So I thought it would be interesting to ask again some of our artist friends that we've had a chance to speak to on our Renman Live show over the last year and a half. I thought it'd be interesting to ask our friends how they found their inspiration. So one of the guys we talked to is a guy I've gotten friendly with because they've toured with Incubus. His name is Nick Hexum. He's He's a singer of 311. Nick has been in the band for a long time. He's written 9 or 10 top 10 alternative tracks. Some of my favorites, Down, Amber, all mixed up, a whole bunch of stuff. He's a guy who knows how to write songs. He's had a lot of success. Nick had this to say about the whole process. He says, the songwriting drops out of the sky. I always say my job is to take care of the quantity of my songwriting, and the universe will take care of the quality. As long as I keep writing songs and keep the pen moving and keep grabbing that guitar, the good ideas will come. Liz, you're smiling. Does that hit a note for you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a writer, so it just like comes.
Yeah.
It could be a feeling, it could be, and I just get the guitar. Before I used to wonder, like how does somebody write? Before I started writing, well, I don't know, I've been writing since I was 10. Mm-hmm. So it's just been always emotion. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it might be comforting to know that some of these successful songwriters are going through the very same things that you're going through, right? I've had an opportunity myself, and you're an Incubus fan, to work with some terrific songwriters. And the core of Incubus was really Mike Einziger and Brandon Boyd. Mike Einziger has co-wrote all those great Incubus songs, and Drive, Animali, Wish You Were Here, Megalomaniac, 4 or 5, number 1 alternative tracks, a dozen top 10 tracks. And most recently, he wrote a big song with Avicii called Wake Me Up, obviously not with Incubus. Mikey knows a little bit about writing songs and the inspiration that comes with it. I was going back through our archives, as I was telling you. I came across a great clip from Mikey, who was one of our very first interviews on our show way back when, and I wanted to share that with you here today. Play the video if you would, Coach.
At any time, something really incredible can happen when you're making music. When you're writing a song, at any time, something really awesome can just fall out of you. The very first songs that I ever wrote, personally, even before starting the band, it was kind of like, this adventure that you could go on. You could create your own adventure, and that's really what songwriting is about. It's telling a story, and like I said before, the excitement of making something happen. You hear these songs about when these stories about when monumental songs were written. It's like it always happens at these really unexpected times. I mean, all it takes is a couple chords or something, and something that makes it seem unique in some way.
All right. Was there a second one there, Cut?
Those were the two.
Oh, okay, great. All right, good stuff. I love Mikey. He's a very inspirational guy there. Okay, so we know what a great song is. We know they don't happen, when you want them, that they're difficult to schedule. But it's not all accidental with the great songwriters. I think great songwriters, in my experience, all have a process or a discipline they follow in search of that moment when that song just appears, as Mikey said. Nick Hexum had some interesting thoughts about how he goes through the process of writing a song, and I wanted to, share that process side of this equation with you. So let's play that clip if you would, Cody. Talk about that discipline side of it. Is that something that you've grown into, or it's always been there for you?
Yeah, when I'm in the beginning of pre-production stage, I will write a song a day. When I say writing a song a day, it's usually just a verse, a pre-chorus, and a chorus, and it's about a minute 20 long. So, and then if I really like that, then I'll flesh it out into a complete song. But I always say quantity begets quality. The more you write, the better it gets. And
All right, so you see there, folks, it's not all magic, okay? And I suspect that most of you folks that are out there writing songs know that. But what's interesting is you think about rock stars and that they don't really have any kind of structure and all that. And you find that when you get to the real professionals, there's the show business person, and then there are people that behind that are very disciplined. I want to talk about another musician who's different because he's not a musician in the traditional sense. He doesn't play guitar very well, he says, doesn't, play piano. but he's become one of the most prolific and one of the greatest songwriters of the last couple of years. His name is Nate Ruess. Nate is the singer of Fun. If you haven't heard Fun, you must not have been listening to the radio at all over the last couple of years. They won the Best New Artist Grammy a couple of years ago. He's written some big songs, We Are Young, Carry On, Some Nights. He's also a very prolific co-writer and collaborator with other artists. He's written with Pink, Just Give Me a Reason, Kesha, Die Young, and most recently, he did a great track with Eminem called Headlights that I've played for all my 50-plus-year-old buddies who just love it because they're all fathers. Anyway, Nate has his own little routine that he goes through that I thought I would share with you because he is a guy who just hears the song and sees it in his head and counts on his musician buddies and producers to help him get it out. But I want him to talk about his process. Nate, take it away, my friend.
You know, with albums, I always start to conceptualize first. I like to put, like with Some Nights, I wanted to put a couple of pieces together. So I like to take time. I don't really necessarily write. I give myself 5 minutes every day to just kind of think about it, whether I'm in the shower or not. And I think, okay, well, what's going to be the first song? What's going to be the last song? How do I kind of fill it in? And what'll happen is I'll start to keep developing it. And then eventually someone says, like, dude, you got to get into the studio. So I'll spend a like solid month kind of like writing it, and then I'll show the guys. We'll work through a couple of things, and then we'll go into the studio and record it.
All right, Nate Ruess, we were just kibitzing here a little bit in between stuff, you know, how interesting Nate's process is. I asked him, well, if you don't have a band around, how do you make that happen? iPhone. Where he records the hook in his head, talks about it into his iPhone, and that's what he takes with him. So it takes all different ways, folks. Everybody loves a different song. Songwriters all have a different approach to it, and it's an individual thing. But I guess the moral of the story is don't count on just that thing flying in the window. Have a little process and work at it a little bit. I mentioned that Nate has been pretty prolific about collaborating with other writers. And I mention that because songwriting, I suppose, could be a singular, solo effort a lot of times. But there have been some unbelievable great, songwriting partnerships over the year. I can think of Elton John and Bernie Taupin, Rodgers and Hammerstein, Keith Richards, Mick Jagger, McCartney, Lennon, Brandon Boyd, Mike Einziger. Too many to remember. But the great thing about a partnership is, particularly true, I think, in the songwriting business, is that each partner can bring something specific and unique to the equation, right? It takes songs, or it takes music, and it takes lyric for something that's going to be in the pop world, right? I mentioned our friend Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly was actually part of one of the great songwriting duos of the 80s and into the early 90s. His partner was a guy by the name of Billy Steinberg. So Steinberg and Kelly were the guys that wrote all those great songs. And in playing golf and knowing Tom for years, he's explained how this all went. So when I had a chance to talk to him on Renman Live, I specifically asked him about how that partnership works between him and Billy and Tom. And I thought it would be a great clip to play for you folks out there that are contemplating writing with somebody else, or that are in a band and writing with other band members. So Cody, play that clip for us if you would.
And like I said, I met Billy Steinberg in 1981. And my weakness, I would write a song in 5 minutes, and the melody and the chords, and I would, sit there pulling my hair out for 2 weeks trying to fill in the blanks. And Billy he's a poet. He had piles, manuscripts of typewritten, structured poem type of lyrics, and his lyrics always had that. I was talking about melodically having a twist or something clever and surprise. Billy always had that in his lyrics. He loved a title like a Virgin, or I Touch Myself.
Exactly. Okay, well, we'll come back to the Billy Steinberg partnership. One of the things we love to do on the site here, Tom. All right, there's my friend Tom. Great guy. Again, I'm going to encourage you folks to check out the links down at the bottom of the page for Tom Kelly. Go check out all the stuff. If you're a songwriter, this is worth spending a half hour, 40 minutes with. It's going to be better than any college class you're going to take, and this will be the closest you get to Tom Kelly, unless, of course, you start playing golf, all right? One final clip I want to play from Tom, too, something I asked him about, and it kind of dovetails with this whole idea of process and discipline and so forth. I kidded around. We talked about, not kidding around, but I talked about, in one of our segments here, treating your career as a business, that the defining characteristic between a hobby and a career is whether you make money doing it, right? So my advice to you is this, is if you're a pro songwriter and that's what you want to do for a living, then you need to treat it like a job, right? One thing for me to say, I'm going to end our little songwriting segment with one more little tidbit of information from my friend Mr. Kelly, and then we'll get on and talk to Brendan O'Brien. Take it away, Code.
And also answering your question earlier, in terms of, yes, it was a job. Once we just focused on, we're songwriters, we literally would write Monday through Friday. The mornings, phone calls, noon, he'd show up at my house, maybe with some burritos to go, and we'd hit the piano or synthesizer, guitar, and I'd just start banging out his lyrics, and we would get going and demo things and work until dinner time and go home.
Gotta love. There you have it. Good, solid advice there, folks. So even though I can't help you write a song, I hope I've helped you a little bit by inviting you into these conversations that we've been having. And like I said, if you're just new to the site and you're just discovering this, please take some time and get through all of those, interviews, whether you're a concert promoter, manager, there's some great stuff in there. And if you're serious about having a career in the music business, you can learn a lot there. Any questions here before we move on to producing? All right, we're all good. Questions in the chat room? Anything on songwriting?
Got questions for B.O.B.
Oh, good. All right, well, let's talk about recording music now. Almost every record has a great producer to help them get that great performance. If you look at the charts on the Billboard charts, you'll look and see almost every single record has a producer. And sometimes it's the writer and the producer, but more often than not, there's a producer involved. And that producer provides perspective to the process and tries to get that great performance. So while the bass player may be thinking about how his bass goes down and the drummer and the guitar player, somebody needs to be in charge of the whole of the picture, and that is the producer. I reckon that they're a little bit like the manager of the recording process, and their ability to weigh in independently and without bias is a huge piece of coming up with something great. There's a couple slides here we're going to talk about when we're done with Brendan. Actually, let me go here first real quick. People ask me, how much does it cost to make a record out there today, right? So you can make them for really cheap. One of my favorite records was Zenyatta Mondada by the Police. I think it cost 17 grand, even when back then 16, 17 grand wasn't much money. There's been records like Michael Jackson, Thriller, that cost 10 million, 20 million, ridiculous amounts of money. But typically today, I think in the major label business, there's somewhere between 150, 200 grand on the low end, sometimes skyrocket up to $1 million. A lot of it depends on genre. Rock records tend to be a little cheaper. It's one band, one producer. Pop records, much different. You got different producers, different writers, different, beat guys and all kinds of folks
Got a quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Clockwork wants to know, are there any bands that have hit records without a producer?
I think there's a few out there. I'd have to think about it, but even those have engineers and people that have some perspective, but they tend to be bands that have been around for a while, okay? I'll think of one by the end here. The producer cost thing, real quick. Typically in the range of $100,000 to $200,000 for a top producer for an album. They get points on their record, royalty points on the record, 4, 5, 6, depending on how successful they are. There might be in some cases where you pay points to the mixer, but the producer guys, the top guys, are in that range here. So we're going to come back to some of that more boilerplate. I want to get to my friend Mr. Brendan O'Brien. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be joined by one of the greatest producers of all time, certainly in the rock world. His name is Brendan O'Brien. Brendan has been nominated many times for a Grammy Award. He's actually won a few now. He's produced 14 #1 albums with some of the biggest acts in rock, including Pearl Jam, Rage Against the Machine, Bruce Springsteen, AC/DC, Stone Temple Pilots, Aerosmith, and my friends in Incubus. If you want to check out his whole discography, which could take you a day or two, you can check it out on the website. He's joining us on the phone today. I won't go through the whole list because he's running out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome my friend Brendan O'Brien. You there, Brendan?
Right here, people.
All right, there you are.
Hey, by the way, we have plenty of time to go through my accolades.
You know, I just ran out of space on my slide, B, you know. God, well, it's great having you on here. I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Happy to do it.
We were talking a little bit earlier today, Brendan, about what it is that makes a great song, and we got some thoughts from the people here in the audience. I gave my thoughts. We had some thoughts from a songwriter. I'm interested from your perspective as a producer. What are the elements of a great song in your mind?
Well, actually, when I think of a great song, I think of a great record. I got a crazy echo going on there. I think it's. I'm trying to get used to that there in your room.
See, if we had a professional producer in here, we could make it happen. Okay.
That's all good. I'll just try to get used to it. I think of great songs as being all inclusive. In other words, it's a great recording, a great record, and it's everything from having. You got to have a hook and a melody that people remember. You've got to have a voice that people like. And I'm a very big believer, and I know this for a fact. It's not just a belief. I know this. I know that the public is not stupid. I would hear from time to time from artists or other people. Well, no one's going to notice that note's out of tune. No one's going to notice that that beat's funny or whatever. Well, the listener may not know why they don't like something. They're just going to know it sucks. And the listener is fairly sophisticated. They know when something is good. And they know when something is not. So you can't talk down to the public. You can't play down to them. You've got to give them your best shot. So a great song is a combination of everything. It can't just be the one thing. It can't just have a great lyric and a great melody. It's got to have all of it, you know?
Yeah, great advice. We got a lot of nodding heads, which you can't see in here, but they're all smiling and nodding, okay? I'm interested. Okay, so here's
can I just say one more thing?
Sure, you can say whatever you want.
When it comes to a great song, however, I will say this. If you have a great singer and you got a good beat and it's kind of not a great mix, whatever, it's still going to be a hit song.
Yeah.
Because that stuff is what's really important. If people relate to the mix and to the singer and they can tap their feet to it, you're almost all the way there.
Well, you've had a chance to work with some of the greatest singers in the world, and you and I have had plenty of time to talk about it. And it's great advice, folks. You know, the singer, it's like having a great quarterback, isn't it, Brendan?
Yeah, well, I don't think it could be overstated.
There you have. We got a singer. Go ahead.
It's not so much whether the singer can hit all the notes and sings high or whatever. It really has to do with do I believe the person? Do I believe this woman singing or guy or whoever? Do I believe what they're talking about? And is the voice something that someone that I just define pleasing? I believe that one of the reasons, I'll give you a great example in my mind. I believe that one of the reasons Coldplay is so internationally revered and they're hugely successful, I think one of the main reasons is people just like that guy's voice.
Yeah.
It's kind of that simple. They like his voice.
Yeah.
They like what he's talking about, and you can go from there, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of bands are like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I agree with everything you're saying. And, I think there's better songwriters in it, but I love his voice too. And even the simpler the song gets, it still sounds great. Brendan, here's another question that I get asked all the time. And that I used to wonder myself until I saw the man at work here up close and personal. And that is, what is the role of a producer? You know, people see the producer get up there on the Grammy Awards. And I know some people are scratching their head going, well, this guy sang the song. This guy write the song. Well, what does this producer guy do?
A good question. Get the hell out of the way. Make sure people stay. Yeah, I don't know. I look at it this way. I think the way that people can most easily relate to it is the producer is to a song much like a director is to a film or to a movie. You're kind of responsible for kind of everything that kind of happens one way or the other. And sometimes that responsibility includes getting out of the way. You really have to kind of know. There have been times when I've had to get in there and arrange every nickel of that song, every single second of. I mean, I've had to get in there and help get into every aspect of a song to get it right, because sometimes people just don't know. You've got to just get in there and be able to kind of pull your weight. There have been times also where I've just had to make sure I do not want to screw this up, because this song is great, this guy's singing great. I just need to make sure I get this thing down and don't screw it up. And that is harder than it seems.
Yeah. Well, it's
the
fun.
temptation often is to get in there and really put your mark on it. I don't ever think about that for myself. I always think of, how can I help these guys? I want people to think, man, this band, this artist, this woman, this dude is great. Not, this producer's great. Your time will come as a producer if you make enough good records, you know?
Yeah, and that seems to be working for you. It's funny, I've likened it to the idea of I look at you as the manager of all that's going on, and when I hear you explain that, it just makes me even more convinced that that's true, because there's so many different personalities. Particularly, you've worked with some great bands where, while it might be all about the singer, I'm pretty certain that everybody else had an opinion as well, right?
Yeah, well, that's for damn sure. And you've got to make everyone feel like they're part of it, because they are. I mean, the road away from success is often littered with lead singers trying to go out on their own, or guitar players, songwriters without their band, and just kind of underestimating the group aspect of it. There's a lot to be said for that. I look at it this way: if you're a producer and you're very serious about it, you've got to just make sure that you make everyone feel like their moment is special and their moment means something, because everyone gets their moment during the course of making a record. The drummer for a period of time, the bass player for a period of time. You know, and also as a producer, I make a lot of records. I don't make just one record every 3 years or 2 years like a band. I make 4 or 5 a year sometime, in different singles. And but what I have tried to do, and I think if for those who want to be producers or want to find a good producer, that person has to be someone who can make the artist feel special for that time that they are working together, that there is no one else in the room. There is no one else while you're working together. Everyone's smart. We all know that I have other bands I work with and other singers and things, and but for that time while we're in the studio and while we're working, I go to great lengths to make sure that they feel like that I'm the only one for them at that moment. It sounds a little bit like, you know, a romantic situation, but it kind of is in its own way. You got to make it feel special.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true, and I couldn't agree more. It's got to make it everybody's idea for them to own it. Cody's got a question for you. You got a question back there, Cody?
Yeah, we got a
Cody,
question.
are you the one from UCLA?
No funny business over there, B.O.B.
We actually.
No, I know. Listen, I know Cody's Mr. USC. God bless the Trojans. Go.
Well, this is another. We got 2 Codys in here now. It's like being in the studio with Brandon. It's like, geez, we got Code.
Sorry about that, Cody.
We call him Code Red.
No problem, B.O.B. Thanks, man.
All right.
Well, you got my TriCaster guy all upset now. Okay, take it away, Code Red.
All right, we got a question from John Paul Robertson, and he says, how do you work through the criticism if an artist doesn't agree with the song you're working on?
Ooh.
Wow, good first question. Thanks, man. Thanks for bringing me down, dude.
That was Cody's revenge. That was Cody Romness's revenge.
Well, look, that's part of it. I mean, I assume what you're saying is if I'm working on a song with an artist and he or she decides that they don't agree with me with what I'm saying about the song, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that's very simple. The artist wins. I mean, look, I can do all I can. I can do everything I can to make sure that the good songs stay and the bad songs go away. But ultimately, if an artist wants to do something, it's their record. And I try to, and generally at that point, when I meet with people, I talk to people ahead of time, we have a pretty good idea of where we're at. That doesn't come up that, as to which songs are going to go and which aren't. It really doesn't come up that much because we kind of know by that point what's going to happen. But it does, it has, and I say my piece and I do what I can. But ultimately, it's not my record; it's their record, and I do my best. That's the honest truth.
I think that's a great tip, Brendan. And I think for all the folks out there watching, if you're working on the professional side of things, what Brendan said there is really the mantra. That's the band's name up on that marquee. And for all the professionals that mistake that, ultimately they get their due in the end here. All right, I want to move on to something else here, B. When you're going in there, and I've had a chance to see you in action, so I've had a first-hand look at it. While you're certainly the captain of that recording process there, in addition to the artists and the band members, you've got a team of people that you work with that seem to be a big, important part of how you do your job. Talk about that, if you would.
Well, excuse me. I think that for me personally, I like, I came up as an engineer and as a musician. I played sessions, and I came up, knowing how to engineer and that kind of thing. So I know that part of it, and I came up working for other producers. Having said that, I learned a lot about how to handle engineers and how not to handle engineers. I'm very loyal. Once I kind of train somebody, so to speak, and have them an engineer that knows how I like to work and knows how I like to have things happen, I don't want to keep looking for that guy. I want that guy to be on my team from now on. So I do everything I can to try to make that person feel like they're part of the team, because they are. And I have a guy, Tom Sarowski, who's been my engineer for the last 5 or 6 years, and he's been pretty much, except with only a couple of exceptions, recorded every record I've done since then. Before that, I had Nick Didia, who was my engineer for about 12 or 13 years, and he did just about every record for me before that. So I'm a very loyal person, and I like having a good team. I also have a Pro Tools guy, an editor, who works with me on all my records. His role is limited in that I don't need him there the whole time, but he's just as important. But I'm a big believer in if you have a great team, keep them, make them happy. Because I don't know how other people. People ask me all the time, how does your recording process differ from others? I don't know how other people work. I have no idea. I don't go to the producers' meetings and the producers' club and talk about how we do shit. I don't know how they work. I know how I work, in that when it comes to the running of the actual session, in other words, the who orders all the gear, who oversees all the gear being set up, who oversees the assistants, who oversees. To me, that's the engineer's job. The engineer works for me and works for the artist. It's my responsibility to work with the artist and all the people in the management, all that kind of stuff. I put the engineer in charge of the entire studio process. And if something's not working or something's not happening, I don't go hassle the studio manager or whatever. I go to the engineer and say, fix this shit. Make it happen. So I think there's a very clear chain of command, and it works for me. So.
What about matters like, pre-production, all these buzzwords that you hear? Right. Are you a believer in that, or do you sort it out while you're in the studio, or do you believe getting it straight and then recording? Every artist is different. Every record is different. There are some people where, I get an example. I worked with this group recently. The singer was exceptionally good on the fly. She was very good at picking things up fairly quickly. And I decided that group needed less pre-production than others, because I felt like the band and the singer in particular was going to be able to pick up things more. It wasn't going to take as much time, and I felt like being able to be in the studio making changes sometimes provides a spark and excitement that you don't get otherwise. In general, I need everyone to know the songs before we're going in. I need them to know these songs very well, for the most part. I always tell people, learn your songs. Learn them great, and be prepared to change everything. We may change a lot. We may not change much, but you got to be ready. And so there's some bands that I go in for a couple of weeks and we practice a lot. There's some bands that I go in and we practice very little, and they do all their demos and we kind of go at it. Well, you told me a story about a big band from down in Australia you work with, big banging rock band AC/DC. Tell them that story about how much pre-production you had there. Well, I will say that in my defense, the record we ended up with that came out, I was very proud of,
and people seemed to like a lot, and it did very well, and it did very well for the band. So having said all that, I was very happy with it. Matter of fact, we're going back in shortly to make another record. I did not speak to them, did not meet them, didn't have word one with them until the first day of recording in Vancouver. That is just the way they wanted it. They didn't want to waste any time with me bullshitting around coming down there. It just is not their way. They showed up day one, and it was as uncomfortable and as uneasy as you could imagine. Me going in a room with these guys who were, just trying to give me enough rope to hang myself with, basically.
Perfect.
And they would play a demo for me, and the demo sounded nothing like what it was supposed to sound like at the end of the day. So I had to translate, and we got it worked out. But their process was, these were veterans, and they'd done it before, and they'd worked with big producers, and they knew the producer's role. I would go in the studio, we would be working songs out, and I would say, hey, what do you think about changing this here? What do you think about, moving this, asking them questions, like, what do you think about this? And Angus would just look at me like, what are you asking me for? Produce. Tell us what to do. Come on. Stop fucking around.
Gotta love it.
And that was kind of their way, and I learned to appreciate that, and they very much knew what their sound was. They were very confident in their sound, but they wanted me to do my job, and they didn't want me to mess around. So that's how that went.
Yeah, and for the record, folks, that thing I think it sold 3, 4, 5 million records around the world. So just goes to show you that. What's that?
5 or 6, but who's counting? I am.
Yeah, 5 or 6. Yes, exactly. Trust me, he's counting. You'll be counting on Sunday too. At any rate,
dude, I count. I gotta tell you something. The people who are producers who tell you they don't count that kind of stuff are not being truthful. Yeah. I care about when records are number one. I care about when they sell well. I friggin' love it. I just don't choose to talk about it a lot, but trust me, it's important to me.
Well, that's why Brendan has me around, so I can remind everybody of the Grammy Award winning, and I'll try to bone up on the rest of that discography. It'll probably take me an hour or two. Okay, we got a question. One of our guests today in the studio is a gentleman by the name of Aaron. He's a drummer and a producer, and he has a question. He's been waiting patiently. He's a quiet one, Brendan, but I'm going to get him to ask a question. Take it away, Aaron.
All right, Aaron, go.
All right. I guess I'm asking this question as a drummer, but just in the studio, you work with a ton of musicians, whether it's a band or a session. Is there any, things that irk you or, pet peeves that musicians do or don't do that you like or dislike when you're looking for the musicians?
Interesting you say that, because usually the drummer is the first one who is exposed, whether they are ready or not, because the first, it does seem like when we first start a record of any kind, that the person I'm picking on constantly is the drummer, but it only happens because when we first start tracking, that's the most important person. We got to get the bass and drums, kind of the groove working, so that the drummer gets kind of hassled a lot at first. I would say my pet peeve is the same thing as what gives me great joy with an artist or a musician, or be it a session guy, whatever. When someone comes in and they're prepared and they do it with and they come in and they work hard, not necessarily with a smile on their face, but with like letting you know that this is important to them, that and they are fully prepared. That makes me feel great. That tells me that they are professional, and that is one of my favorite things. That's also when someone comes in unprepared, no matter how good they are, I freaking hate that, and I let them know in a very quiet way.
Yes. All right, we got one more. We got a great question from our chat room. Meet Michelle.
One last thing about that. I just real quick. I'm sorry, Aaron. It's interesting you said this. I had a drummer come in. I'm not going to mention names in a band, and they came in, and the drummer wasn't that prepared. He was a pretty good drummer, but wasn't that prepared. Wasn't that he was just kind of. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. And I looked at my engineer and said, that dude has no heart. And my engineer looked at me and said, oh, my God, that is the worst thing I've ever heard you say about anybody ever, dude. I mean, that is all. And you know, it really was. When you I mean, this guy, he didn't have the heart for it. It just, you can tell. People know. Okay.
Yeah, and by the way, Tom doesn't say a whole lot of anything, so he should have turned the mic on into the studio, let the drummer hear that, just for a little impact. All right, we got a question. We got a question here from Michelle, who goes to UCLA. We've forgiven her. She's a singer-songwriter in her own right. Was actually on The Voice a couple of years ago. Very talented.
All right, Michelle. Way to go.
There you go. She's got a question for us. Fire away, Michelle.
Yes, we got a question from the audience. They want to know your opinion on the new wave of rock bands that are doing everything by themselves, from pre-production, production, songwriting. Do you think that the quality of what people are doing now can actually equate to things that you would do in the studio? Or producers in general?
I think that if people are good at it, right on. I'm excited by there's a lot of bands out there making records I like now. I'll give you an example. It's not so new, but a couple of years ago, Edward Sharp and the Magnetic Zeros came out. And that dude, Alex, I can't think of his last name right now. I became an instant fan. They did it all themselves because I just thought it sounded different. I could not quite figure out how they were doing it. Or they meant it to sound kind of, lo-fi, or if it happened by accident. Whatever all that was, it provoked a response for me. So, no, I love it. I'm okay with all that. But, people who want to be in charge also have to understand, if they make a shitty record, it's on them. They could have hired someone better.
Right.
But I don't really care who makes the records. And by the way, this has been going on for years. I mean, Prince made his own records. Bruce Springsteen produced his own records. This is not necessarily a new thing. What makes it easier now is technology has made it much less expensive to go in and make your own records. The problem with that technology is a lot of people who really have no business making records and making music are making music, and it sucks.
Yes.
So with all the good music that's happening with that, you're getting exponentially that much more shitty music too, and I do believe that.
Yeah, I think that's an opinion a lot of people share out there. It's a good segue.
I'm not a hater at all. I'm not a hater about that. I think that there's some great music being made right now by young people. I feel like an old guy saying this shit, but who are doing it themselves. But I mean, they're learning. I mean, some of these people are learning. I tell you, example. That band Fun, I know they have a producer, but I believe that the guys that run, I can't think of his name, the singer right now.
Nate,
that guy's got his shit together. And you can tell. So,
yeah,
God bless him.
Okay. I know your voice is going, and I appreciate you joining us here, so I'll get one last question.
Sorry about that, folks.
That's okay. What have you been doing? He's been working. He's been playing with some bands this week, so you should stick to producing, Brendan.
I did. I went out and played with there's a band called The Last International, and they've got a new record coming out on aPpKVg, and I went and played a couple of gigs with them.
Yeah, you've been working a lot. So anyway, I'll tell you guys a funny story. When I had a chance, I've spent a lot of time with Brendan, probably more time on the golf course than the studio. But I remember when Brendan was telling me about how he started, that when he was in Atlanta, where he lived for years until just recently, the rep was that if you needed a record made for $1,500 and wanted it to be great, okay, Brendan O'Brien was the guy you called, right?
Yeah.
I think. Well, it's unlikely that anybody's going to get you for $1,500 these days. I'm thinking about all those young artists and independent artists out there today that aren't with a label, that aren't going to have a chance to be with a top-line producer today. I'm wondering what advice you would give to those artists in the spirit of that $1,500 man on things they can do to make a great record with limited resources, and I'll let you go on that one.
It's difficult to say any one thing because some people can do this in their own homes. I would say if it were me and I were a musician, I was a musician in a band, and if I were getting going and I felt like I had good songs and I knew they were good. Now keep in mind, people, just because your family says your stuff's good doesn't mean it's any good. I'm talking about you go out there and you play 300 or 400 people a night, and they let you know by paying over and over to see you that you're good. If you have that kind of response, I would want to go. I would want to find. Let's say you live in Louisville, Kentucky, or let's say you live in Cincinnati, Ohio. Somebody in that town is making good-sounding, cheap records. Find that person and and go and get them to help you make a record, because I think you'll learn something. It'll be less expensive than if you do it on your own, quite frankly, because you'll do it more quickly. But again, I think you'll learn some things by someone who has learned to work very quickly on limited resources. And pretty much every town of a decent size has a guy that can do that. And I would just say go find out who that is and make a record with them.
Oh yeah, it's great advice. And I think for you folks that don't know Brendan as well as I do, I think that, I hear you say that, Brendan. I can only think that, so much of that ethic that you learned back there for $1,500 is why you've been so successful as a producer. Brendan works fast. He doesn't waste any time, and he keeps bands rolling, and that's why they keep coming back to you, I suspect. And
also, again, it's what I said in the beginning. It's not just the artist, but it's me. It sounds corny, but you got to be prepared. Do your prep work. Get your shit together. There's nothing more inspiring for an artist than when they come in the first day, and I'm deadly serious about this, and they can tell right away that the producer they're giving all their freaking money to has his shit together. There's nothing quite like that, because they can just as easily find out, holy shit, we're screwed. This guy doesn't know anything. It's so much. I take that so seriously in that I make sure the headphones sound great right off the bat. I make sure when they come in to hear the first rough mix through the speakers that it's got to sound great. That kind of stuff is very important because it builds confidence.
Yeah, funny to hear you say that, Brendan. Having spent so much time with you, I think about every time I've gone in the studio to hear something and Brendan tells me it's a rough mix. And I always feel like an idiot, Brendan, because I'm thinking, well, that sounds freaking finished to me, So
well, it's because I learned from day one to keep things sounding good immediately, because it only inspires confidence. It promotes less questions. Unnecessary questions,
Exactly. All right, speaking of questions, we got one more question here. Code Red, our intern, is an aspiring musician and producer himself, so he has a question. Since I'm not paying him, this is Code Red, not Code USC.
Okay.
Code, what's your question?
We got a question. Are you still learning things as a producer with your experience?
Oh, hell yes. I'll give you an example. Another one. I did a record recently with a band, and by mistake, wasn't so much by mistake, but we'd set up a microphone and for the singer, and I was looking for this kind of retro sound. I couldn't really describe it. There's a woman named Dusty Springfield from the 60s who had a certain kind of sound to her voice. I couldn't figure out what was happening, and the engineer I worked with, put the mic on, and she was singing, and immediately it sounded just the right way. And I didn't know what was happening. It turns out that he had, by mistake, turned the mic pre-up way too loud and had a certain kind of microphone. It was distorting in just a certain way that gave us that sound and actually helped the singer sing better. So I instantly learned, after freaking doing this for 20-something years, that if you just crank the mic pre-up a bit, the singer sings better. I mean, for real, people.
So there you have it, folks. All stuff that you couldn't learn in college, but you learned it here today. Oh, God, if they could only come out and play golf with us, Brendan, it would be their best day of their lives. So, all right, Brendan.
Look, I got to say, I still love my job very much. I don't necessarily love the business that much, but I do love my job quite a bit. I still love it, and I still do learn things, and you have to look at it that way. Again, it may sound silly coming from me, but I really do love it. It's still exciting to me. So there you go.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end. Brendan, I want to thank you so much for taking time today to join us, and you've imparted some great wisdom for all these folks here, and you made my day too. I'll see you on Sunday. Thanks for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
All righty. All right. Good stuff. Brendan O'Brien is one of the most solid folks you're ever going to meet in the business. Forget that he's a record producer. He's one of the great human beings of all time, and I'm lucky to call him a friend. All right. Well, so today we've had to talk about the song stuff, right? We've decided that, those songs can come from anywhere. You're going to be pulled in a million directions. You're going to want to remember to keep your true north. Write music that you want to write, okay? Don't worry about whether it's going to sell. That will sort itself out on its own. We know that inspiration can come from anywhere. Let your life be an inspiration. Keep your eyes open. Keep your ears open. plug into what's going on and find a way to talk about it in a way that other people can relate to. We know that while that inspiration can come at any time, the great songwriters, the successful songwriters have a process. They have a discipline about them. And like Tom Kelly, the great songwriters, the ones that make a career at it, treat it like a job. They go in there and to write songs. That's what they put on their passport. Own that. I'm a songwriter, right? The other thing, I think all these people, and you've heard it from Brendan O'Brien, the people that are successful, they still love it. They still enjoy it. They're fired up to do it. And I would encourage all you folks out there today that are thinking about doing something great on the creative side, the music side, do it because you love it. Make it your life's work and have some fun doing it. Next Wednesday, this next week I'm going to be out of town, so we won't be having our class. Well, our next session is going to be on Wednesday, March 19th. We're going to be talking about marketing and promotion. And this one is more geared toward you folks out there that are making that $1,500 record, trying to figure out how to get it out there in a way that you're proud of. So we're going to talk about all of those things on Wednesday, March 19th. I hope you'll join our community here, folks, if you haven't already. I want to thank all the folks in the audience here today for joining us. I want to thank Michelle for doing a great job. My son, Matt, Rennie, Code Red, our intern, James Early from Houston, Texas, now Cali, and my Trojan compadre back there, Mr. Cody Ramos. I couldn't do it without my great team. So my name's Steve Rennie. My friends call me the Ren Man. This is Renman U, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us.